Hello students, in this video we will discuss asynchronous JavaScript. When we have a number of operations lined up and when we don't want other operations to wait while the first one to get execute, we need something like asynchronous characteristic. Asynchronous characteristic, it will keep the operation waiting, at the same time it will make the remaining program to execute. Here we have a small assumption. Back in the day, when the internet was new, when we make any transaction or when we do any stuff on a website, the whole website used to wait for that particular operation to succeed. And we couldn't do any other operations or we couldn't change any content on the website. In today's scenario, that isn't an issue anymore, because we have JavaScript asynchronicity. JavaScript uses event loop to perform asynchronous operations. It works with call stack, web APIs, the callback queue and the microtask queue. Using these concepts, JavaScript engine successfully performs asynchronous operations. Let's briefly talk about the event loop content. Starting with call stack. The JavaScript code is executed using the LIFO method. Web APIs. Here we have concepts like DOM, AJAX and timers that can handle asynchronous tasks outside the JavaScript engine. Then we have callback queue, where our callbacks are pushed to wait for the execution. Then we have microtask queue. It monitors the call stack and pushes the first event from the callback queue if the stack is found empty. Let's move further to discuss about what are the initial stages of asynchronicity. Callbacks. Callbacks were the traditional way to handle asynchronous operations. Callbacks are sending a function as an argument to another function. So this is a basic example that shows how a callback works. And using callbacks were found difficult as the code increased. So down the line, what happened? A lot of nested structures arose in JavaScript code that led to callback hell. So as the complexity of the JavaScript increased, the callbacks were found difficult to use for asynchronous operations. Then came promises. Promises came as a rescue to callback hell. Promises, as we already discussed, it returns two parameters or two properties, which is resolve and reject. So promises, like we already discussed, deals with an eventual success or failure of an operation. So here promises comes with two properties, either resolve or reject. So based on that, the success or the failure of something is decided. Okay. So this is the example from the earlier video, where we are loading a data. We are trying to fetch a data and load it using a set timeout, and later eventually it is decided if it is resolved or rejected. Then comes the fun part, async and await. Async and await has added a lot of credibility to promises. Async and await is not a replacement to promises, rather you can say they are quite a great addition to promises. So let's see how async and await work. So assume we are waiting at a restaurant, okay, and we have ordered for a burger. Now it would certainly take some time for our dish to be served. So in the meantime, what we can do, we can either stand at the queue waiting for our burger to be served, or we can either grab a table and sit with our friends and we can chit chat, isn't it? So while we are waiting for the dish to be served, a lot of things happen around, isn't it? So the whole program or the whole system is in a movement. Everything is being executed. So the whole restaurant doesn't come to a standstill and to serve our own order, isn't it? So we are waiting. So waiting for the burger can be assigned to async function, and while we are at the table, our token number, okay, or our turn can be used as a wait. So that's the example which I thought of. Then let's look at an example, an actual example that explains more about async and await. Here, if you see a function preceded by async keyword, then you can say this is an async function, and this function could be get delayed because of a operation, okay. And within the async function, you can see we have an object response to what are we assigning to the object? We are assigning await new promise. So we are assigning a new operation. Now we have used await because this operation could get delayed and we are uncertain of what time it might get executed, or how much time it might take to get executed. So for this scenario, we are using async and await. And meanwhile this is executed, you can make the JavaScript to work on other operations. Okay, and the reason for which it might get delayed is because I have used here set timeout. Okay, so here we have a promise with resolve and reject, and then we have set timeout. So here we are taking a time of 1000 milliseconds to get a random data get loaded. Okay, then here we are trying to print the response, and here we are calling the fetch data function. So while this waits for the data to get loaded, you can make the other operation in your application or the website to work on its functions. Okay, so this is the best and very easy example for you to understand. So moving forward, let's try to understand handling multiple asynchronous tasks. And we have seen this yesterday, and the same thing, the same methods are again very useful here in this case also. We have discussed in the previous video, but I felt it is again important for us to discuss these. Promise.all, okay, it waits for all the promises to resolve, and promise.all, the syntax here, we have different operations lined up and it will wait for all of these to get resolved. Then we have promise.raise. Now we know it's a very interesting function. If either one gets resolved first, then it will assume all the operations to be resolved, or if it gets rejected, it will assume the rest to be get rejected. So we have to be very careful while using promise.raise. Here is its syntax. So with the introduction of asynchronous operations, JavaScript has been, it got revolutionized as to how we use JavaScript. And asynchronicity has brought a lot of change the way the consumer or the way the client, the user experiences his web presence. Thank you.